Hi, welcome to the Dream Factory community. My name is Nancy Cantor and I'm your hostess. And here at the Dream Factory, what we do is we interview members of our community who we feel are living their dreams, but also, more importantly, helping other people live theirs. Today, I'm speaking with Carolyn McGee. She's the owner of the Ashland Pet Concierge right here in local Ashland. And also, she is creating a new business as an intuitive life coach. And there's one more thing. She's also the team leader for the Framingham Dream Factory community. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you, Nancy. It's so nice to be here.
I'm glad you're here. I have lots of questions for you.
Excellent. I love questions.
Oh, good. So usually what we do to start, just to start out the show, given it's called the Dream Factory community, is we ask the people that are here, what brought you to the Dream Factory? So we'll start with that question.
All right, that's a great question. Family and community is something that's always been extremely important to me. I grew up with a large extended family in northern New York, and we were kind of the stereotypical family where most of the women were teachers, and they literally would go home to mom for the summer. So it was great because I lived in an area where we had 11 acres of land. We got to play outside. I have 11, well, including me, there was 11 kids. And yes.
Really?
Really. And wow. We are all just as close now as we were growing up. I am just as close to my cousins as I am to my sister. And it's very, very positive. I know that I can count on these people. I can trust them no matter what. I have a family. And it's a beautiful thing. And we had a really wonderful experience learning how to share jobs, take care of each other, resolve issues within the family. It was great. So family is something that's extremely important to me. When I moved away from home, which is northern New York, and moved down to Massachusetts, the hardest thing for me to adjust to was not having that support system, not having that immediate family so close by to me. And part of what the beauty of the Dream Factory is for me is it's an incredible community. It's very supportive. It's there for me. And I feel like I can be there for the other people who are in it and help them forge those bonds, learn to reach out to people when they need support, build a heart connection. Really,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've run the Framingham community since its beginning 9 years ago. And, I grew up with, and I'm not that family oriented. I have one sister. I don't know many of my cousins. I don't have those bonds. So I think my thinking in creating community is having more of a family situation, mm-hmm. Not because that's where I came from, but it's because I guess I felt that was missing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love my sister, but that doesn't make for a whole community.
Right.
And so my vision was to create a community I really wanted to be part of. Now, it's interesting with you taking over the Framingham community that you have had that experience of family. And I think that's really great. Like there's something, I'm excited because I feel like there's something you're going to bring that stands on the shoulders of whatever it is that I created originally.
Well, I think you've created a beautiful and very, very strong foundation. And just like when you have a house or a business, you have to have a strong foundation in order for something to survive. You can't build a house on quicksand and have it, be there for a long term. So the Dream Factory has this awesome connection, awesome foundation that can go out in so many different directions. Just like building a house, you can put on different types of rooms, and depending on what people need at a certain point in time, they can go into the room that gives them a little bit more of the entrepreneur connection. Some of the speakers that we've been having at the Dream Factory meetings recently, or the luncheons, they provide direction on where you want to take your business, and that's a great room to have in this house, so to speak, that we're building. Other people just are going through life transitions. They're going through divorces, or they're having new children, or they've suffered a terrible loss. Perhaps a loss in their life, a death, and they need support in a different way. So you've got that area, and other people they're just looking for a support system. A way that they can open up. Perhaps they do have a small family and they're looking to build other relationships and meet sisters of the soul, so to speak. Mm. And it's a great way to have all of those things as a part of the Dream Factory that's already existing.
I think that's fabulous. And I think it just speaks to, as different people get involved, different elements get brought to it.
Yeah.
And I love your analogy of a house, and that there's different rooms in the house. Like there might be certain rooms I'm interested in hanging out in, but there's other rooms that other people would want to hang out in.
Yeah, and it speaks to the diversity within the Dream Factory too. You know, just like there's different communities, there's different flavors, even within one community, even within just the Framingham community, there's different needs of the people. You know, we have the luncheons, and that's a really great way to meet kind of a more professional need. And then, you know, we want to start doing things like ladies' nights out or potluck dinners. We're doing the pool party, which is going to be a lot of fun. It allows people to connect in a different way, a more fun way, a more heart-to-heart way. And that builds up relationships within the organization, so that then when people are starting to do businesses, you know, they've got this other type of connection too to work with. It's great.
And I think with business, people do business with people they know,
Absolutely.
like, and trust.
Yes, they
So it
do.
lends a nice climate for, you know, as you're creating new things, whether it be professional or personal, that you've got people on board who want to help you, whatever it is.
Yes, exactly.
So so that's fabulous. I'm really excited about the future that you're creating for Framingham and the flavor that that's going to bring. I think that's going to be really terrific. I think the other thing I wanted to ask you about, so you're an intuitive life coach,
Yes.
and that always, you know, sounds to me that you draw upon a lot of different elements to help people, you know, the clients that you have and to your leadership at the Dream Factory. So say more about what's the essence of intuition and what you bring to what you do.
Certainly. Intuition it's in your internal guidance system. It's like having a GPS in your body. So instead of, you know, using your phone now or the satellites up in the air, you're actually connecting to source, to God, the universe, whatever resonates with you, to get a yes or a no, a good, bad, and allow you to make really informed choices based on this electrical connection that we all have. You know, I'm a huge fan of Gibbs on NCIS. I think that, you know, he's one of my favorite characters. I just think he's a riot. And one of the things that is so well known about him is he's always talking about his gut. He's talking about his gut. And everybody knows that if Gibbs' gut says something, then it's true. It's like it's black and white. It's so well accepted. And everybody has that gut instinct. Everybody has that feeling, that intuition, the sense of knowingness. Most people don't follow it. So if in my coaching, what I use is that intuition, and I have learned other tools to help me sharpen it and to help me really refine my ability to understand it and be able to give guidance to people. I'm also an angelic life coach. It's where I got my foundation. I'm an angel communication master. That means that I reach out to God's messengers, to the divine influence that is here. If you look in biblical references, angels are God's messengers, and it's not just in the Catholic religion or the Christian religion. It's all across all religions. Angels are here as God's messengers, and it's just an energetic feeling that that I experience, that I can differentiate from other energies to feel and receive information. I receive the information as sometimes just a sense of knowingness. I literally hear voices so that I can receive messages. Sometimes it's through songs. I see visions. I see little video clips in my mind. Sometimes it'll be a static picture. I use angel cards or other types of cards to receive messages from the visions that are in the cards. The pictures will kind of lead me on to a path of what's next. It's almost like putting together a puzzle. You know, you get a little piece of it, and then it leads you on to the next thing, which leads you to the next thing, and then it's a conversation. You know, bringing up that I see this. What does it mean to you? Can bring out perhaps a pattern or a deep thought process so that the person isn't aware that they're holding inside.
It's great. So it sounds like you've got tools
I do.
that help you give people guidance.
Yes.
And it seems like you must have practices that keep you open to these kinds of tools and I forget, what would be the right word? input, the kind of input you
Yeah.
get, angelic input.
Yes, exactly.
So say a little bit more about that. Like, how have you gotten into this? Like, what had you know that you were, because it sounds like you hear stuff, you see stuff, you put patterns together. How did this come about? Because I know you used to work in corporate, and I don't know if it happened back then. I know you have a pet, you walking and boarding
Right.
pets, so you've done that. So you've kind of done the straight and narrow. And now this is kind of opening up to a new realm.
Yes, it is.
So how did that transition happen?
I have always been, I call myself the office counselor. And even when I was in high school and college, everybody would come to me for advice. And I just would say whatever came into my mind, which is kind of the same thing as now. I just would say what seemed to make sense to me.
Mhm.
And I was, so I was always the fix-it person. How do you do this? And I always thought outside of the box too. Even though I had, I have an engineering management degree from Clarkson University, so I've got this very traditional background, and then I did work in corporate for over 20 years. But my success at corporate was not from my intellect. It was thinking outside the box. It was making suggestions that people didn't necessarily think of by going from point A to B to C. Sometimes it was well received, and sometimes I was told to keep my opinions to myself. And that's part of the reason that I'm not in corporate anymore, is because I had all of this information and I could see how it would help people do the jobs better, make the company more money, make the environment more friendly, and it wasn't well received.
So they didn't really understand where you were getting the information. They weren't necessarily open. And I think that happens a lot when you're in a structured position, that your creativity is not always welcomed.
Yes, and it doesn't fit in the checkbox of, how well do you perform your jobs. There's no checkbox for intuition. There's no checkbox for thinking outside the box. There's, does she do A, B, and C? And I did all of that, but I did it in a non-traditional manner. And back in 2006, at the beginning of the recession, I lost my job due to downsizing. I was at a venture capital funded company that ran out of money. And at that point in time, I knew I needed to do something different. I was a single mom, 2 small children at the time, mortgage. I had to make sure that I had, money to pay the bills. And I started my pet business as a backup while I was looking for a job. And I started trying to do some things different, like perhaps do business systems, selling business systems, because I had done a lot of that in my corporate work, using them. So I was keeping all of my options open. But the pet business, I could almost like read what the pets needed, and I was able to connect with them on such a deep level that the pet parents, as I call them, just loved having me care for their pets because I was different. I had the business background, which I fully used. I mean, I have, the business it's structured. I've got all the legal stuff that I need to take care of, insured, bonded, background checks on anybody that works for me. So I've got all this business stuff, which is fabulous. But there's something different about me that people resonated with, and because they were talking about their 4-legged children, they really wanted that. And it opened up in me, I guess it just allowed the creativity and the intuition to really flow, because that's what people were connected to me, and that's how they were drawn to me, and that's what differentiated me in
everything that you've done.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, in corporate you use your intuition.
Yes.
When you had your pet business, you connected in this really kind of spiritual, wonderful way. And now, in doing your intuitive life coaching, it's almost like you've given yourself permission to have it stand on its own.
That's
like, this is who I am, and this is what I do.
Yes, that is a great way to pull it all together. And it is who I am. It's who I've always been.
Right.
I just didn't honor it.
Right, and it's your gift. I mean, you honored it in certain ways, and I mean, that's kind of a big deal to step out and say, I'm an intuitive life coach, because it's similar. I think when we first started the Dream Factory, and I would say, we have a Dream Factory, and honestly, it wasn't like people were waiting or wondering when the next Dream Factory was coming along. And it literally, for me, it came in a dream. And so then it's taken me 9 years, and I mean, probably a little less than that because it's been together for a while, but it took me a few years to to really formulate it in a way that when I said it, I didn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh yeah, no, it is a real thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when you step out to do what you're uniquely designed to do, it takes a little bit to practice saying it and believing in it. And but you have such a track record.
Yeah.
You have a wonderful track record. So, and I know recently you did a luncheon for the Dream Factory where you spoke specifically about intuition.
Yes.
I figured this would be a great opportunity to share a little bit about what you said, because that's like your unique gift that you bring to your coaching.
Thank you. Yes. Like I mentioned before, intuition is your internal guidance system, and everybody has it. And I have noticed over the years that when I follow my intuition, life goes so smoothly. And when I don't follow it, I typically will get an opportunity to have a do-over. Like if I'm at a position where I need to turn left or right, let's say, and my guidance is telling me to turn left, and I turn right, I will get to turn again and again and again until I'm right back at the same point where I can then use all the lessons I've learned on my little divergent tour here to make the correct decision, or the decision that's really in my highest good, and make that left turn.
Okay, so let's hear some examples of either people you've worked with or yourself of where you drew upon your intuition and it worked out.
Sure. One of the ones that I think is easiest for people to understand is when I bought my home. I bought my home in 2000, and the moment I walked in the door, when I was on the initial visit, I knew it was my house. I mean, I just in my gut knew that this was the right place that was going to support me and my kids as they went through high school. And my daughter was starting first grade at the time, so I mean, I had a ways to go going through there. But I just knew that I was going to be there until my children got through school. One of the things that was really important to me was stability. I moved around a lot as a child, and it was one of the things that was really uncomfortable for me. I mean, making new friends, going into new schools, changing. I think in second grade, I was in 3 schools.
Wow.
So I had made that commitment, and I walked in, and that was one of the things that was on my list is, can I live here? Can my children and I live in this house for the next 12 years? And I knew it. But what I did, because I needed to also be logical, I am half of an engineer, was I researched the school system. I made sure that I could financially afford the house, and I checked out the neighborhood. I actually went walking around and knocked on a few doors. So I also did the logical thing to balance it and to almost like prove my intuition correct. Because this is the time when I was like, I had the intuitive ability, but I wasn't quite sure about it, because some of the choices that I had made previous weren't really good, mostly because I didn't follow my intuition. And for example, one of those was I had been working for Raytheon for about 5 years, and it was the first place that I worked when I graduated from college. It's actually how I moved from New York to come down here. And I was looking for another job because I was running into some issues with managers kind of hitting a glass ceiling. I wasn't being supported with this different approach that I have to things, and was just feeling a lot of pressure to leave through a whole lot of dynamics, and accepted a job even when I was feeling in my gut that it was not the right move for me to take, but I was just feeling this pressure to get out. So rather than waiting for the right job to come along, I took the first job that came along. And it was in 1987, and a month after I left, the stock market crashed. I hadn't been able to move my money out of my pension plan that I had at Raytheon, lost a lot of money there, and the company that I moved to actually had a massive layoff. So it was very, very clear that it wasn't the best opportunity for me. Now, I had a bunch of other wonderful things come out from that experience. I learned a lot. They actually were a very open-minded company, so I was allowed to express myself, try different things. Rather than lay me off, they moved me into a different job, so I got to expand my experience base. So it wasn't a loss, but I know in my heart that there would have been a better opportunity if I had been patient and trusted.
So how do you encourage people? Because I think decisions are a big thing.
Yes.
And people, in this day and age, around finances, job, personally, how do you help people develop that internal guidance? Because sometimes you could get mad if something just went on in your family and you just want to leave.
Right.
That could happen.
It could happen.
Right? Or something happens in your job and you have a fight with somebody. So then you go, I think I should leave. How do you weigh the circumstances of what's going on and bringing in that intuition so that, maybe it is that you get the lessons, because I think leaving isn't always the right thing. There's always lessons wherever you are.
Absolutely.
So how do you encourage people, or what can people do to develop that intuition that gets them on the right track?
I think one of the key points to really get in touch with your intuition is to take some time in stillness. People sometimes call it meditation. It's just connecting in with something that's bigger than we are. You can do that by just walking, without your headphones, just walking by yourself and kind of getting in a rhythm. A lot of people who are runners, when they get that runner's high, when they get that connection, those endorphins, you're in that space of receiving. A lot of times people will say they got the most brilliant idea when they're driving, because it's kind of like this mindless activity so that they can receive that information. I ended up making a job decision back, I don't even remember when it was, but when I was rollerblading. It was back in the, I think it was in the early, mid-90s, when it was the internet boom. Everybody was crazy and everybody was going to be a gazillionaire, and there was lots and lots of jobs. So I was in the fortunate position to have 3 job offers, and I couldn't connect in with which was going to be the best. Some of them required travel, some of them didn't, some of them were further away, I had little kids, et cetera, et cetera. I went rollerblading, and I just cleared my mind and asked for the answer.
And so how did that answer come?
I saw the symbol of the one company that I was to work with in my head as it was like I had all this stuff, and I had done, like I said, I am an engineer, so I had all these lists, pros and cons of everything, and they were all kind of balanced as far as they all had pros and cons. And the one company I ended up working with had, I don't remember, it was some kind of a blue bug. Their symbol was BlazeNet, and they had this like little blue symbol with a Z and a bug. And as I just kept seeing the blue Z and a little bug. So it was simple. And as I said, they were all similar. I couldn't have made a bad decision as far as like the logic of it all.
Yeah.
But what was going to be the best choice for me and my kids and my entire family, because I was still married at that point in time. So there was a lot of things to take into consideration.
Yeah, so there's something about tapping into your, I always like to think in terms of like there's 2 sides of your brain.
Yes.
Like left side, right side, that type of thing. And, you can do the whole logical thing. I guess that's the left side of your brain.
Yeah.
And, but then there's that right side of your brain. And how do you tap, I think you're speaking to that you do this and you do that. And the intuition falls more on the right side of the brain, that creative side that taps into something else. And I guess people have all different beliefs of what you're tapping into. I agree with you. Yesterday, Concord had one of their breakfasts, in one of the other communities, and I brought my bike with me. So I went to the breakfast, and then after the breakfast, I met with a couple people. I took my bike, and I did this wonderful loop around Weston, and then I came back to Walden Pond. I went swimming.
Beautiful.
So I think that's kind of how I do it. I feel like if I get back to exercise, sometimes I do yoga, sometimes I ride my bike. There's something about it was just so beautiful yesterday.
It was gorgeous.
That it just felt like such a good feeling.
And it does free your mind. I think people get so trapped into the word meditation that they like think that they have to sit and cross leg and back up straight and all of that. And that's a beautiful way of meditation if it works for you. Yep. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people like to have music going, some people like to have chanting, some people like to use other ways of connecting. Dance, I find dancing for me is a beautiful way for me to connect into my body, connect into my energy, and release things. I'm actually starting a new modality called chakra dance.
Oh.
Yes, I know. I'm really excited about this. I am training to become a facilitator, so I will be able to offer classes. It's a way of balancing the energy in your body and releasing it using elemental music and free-form movement. So
Nice.
yeah.
That
So
sounds great.
I know. I'm so excited about this. I'm in about 12 weeks. I will be certified. So
Yeah.
I will.
So it
be
sounds like a ladies' night out.
ladies' night out, yes,
Yeah.
and then I will be looking for places to hold classes down here too. So
Awesome. Now, I know we have to wrap up pretty soon. You have 2 little crystals. Do you want to say anything about your crystals?
sure. Some of the other work that I do, well, there's all different types of energies that I use to support me in my work. I use crystals, I use Reiki, I use color therapy, I use the chakra work, as well as the angels and the other intuitive things. So the crystals, they all have certain energies. Everything in life has energy associated with it. So the turquoise supports communication, and the amethyst supports intuition. So for me, they were just 2 little friends to come along and energetically support
So
me today.
communication, intuition.
Communication and intuition.
Nice. I think if people can tap into their intuition
Yes.
and learn how to communicate from
Yep.
their intuition, that things might turn out. And I think that fits into what you're saying about intuition, that there is something about tapping into that internal GPS. And the more that you're clear, and I think this is pretty consistent with the Dream Factory, we help people get clear what their intentions are.
Yes, exactly.
And and then tap into other people, but also tap into their internal guidance system that helps them be chief dream officers, proactive in terms of taking on their life, their work, and their world. And I mean, I feel like what you shared today is a really good example. I think with all our members, everybody brings a unique gift.
Yes.
And I'm really thrilled that you, as the leader of the Framingham community, the community leader, that you bring such a wealth of intuition and grace, and really this appreciation of what is it like when we all come together and really get that sense that we're all connected and we're all one.
Yeah.
That's really completely awesome.
Thank you.
So I really want to thank you for being that,
Thank you.
and for sharing your gifts so generously.
I really enjoy it. It brings me a great sense of peace and comfort to be able to connect and to support people. I go back to when I first moved here and how lost I felt and how difficult it was to really build those connections that I was missing because I had moved away from where I had it almost innately. It just was there. And to be able to reconnect that and rebuild it and support women, it brings me joy.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, thank you so much for being here today with us. It was our joy to have you. I want to thank you for tuning in today. We're talking with Carolyn McGee, who's an intuitive life coach, and she also owns Ashland Pet Concierge. I'm Nancy Cantor. You're listening to the Dream Factory community, and I hope that you heard something today that will support you in living your dreams. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.